Hello everyone, welcome back to SJ's classes. This is my second lecture on the poem Lycidas written by John Milton. In the previous session, I gave you a very brief introduction to the poet as well as the poem, and we also discussed the first few stanzas. As I said in the previous session, this is a pastoral elegy that Milton wrote to mourn one of his college mates named Edward King, who died by drowning in the sea. Now, after reading the first few stanzas, we understood why Milton is often referred to as the most significant and important writer after William Shakespeare. In the first few stanzas, we came across numerous references, allusions made to mythology as well as other works. We came across numerous mythological characters in both Greek as well as Roman mythologies. We came across many poetical devices. And to imagine that Milton is called as one of the most important poets after Shakespeare, even though he was blind. It's after he became blind that he even wrote his famous epic Paradise Lost. So to imagine a person like him, who made significant contribution to English literature, irrespective of his disability. So at the very outset, we understood why or what is the motive behind the composition of this poem. Milton, in the prologue, he explicates the reason for writing this particular pastoral elegy, which is, of course, the death of Lycidas or Edward King. And then he invokes the muses. Later on, as we progress, we understand that the loss that he has suffered, the loss of Edward King, has made or has brought about great change in his life. He blames the muses for it. At a point, he even consoles by saying that they couldn't have done anything. Even if they were there, even if the sea nymphs were there, they couldn't have done anything. But he continues to blame the muses. He calls them as the thankless muse, and he even decides to stop the trade of shepherd or writing poetry. And that is when Phoebus, or the Roman counterpart of Apollo, enters and says that uh, fame is given to everyone by Jove or Jupiter or Zeus. It's not we who achieve fame, but Phoebus. I mean, Jove or Jupiter who gives men Phoebus. And that is where we stopped the other day. Let's continue reading the poem. O fountain Aratus, and thou honoured fled, smooth sliding Mincius, crowned with vocal reeds, that strain I heard was of a higher mood. Now, when you read the poem, you might think that this poem is very complicated. It's very difficult to be comprehended. But once you fragment the verses and with an understanding of the references that he makes, you will be able to understand this poem in a decently good manner. So Milton in this stanza says, O fountain Aratus. Aratus is a fountain on the island of Sicily, which is in Italy. So he addresses the fountain Aratus, and he says, O fountain Aratus, and thou honored fled, smooth sliding Mincius. Mincius is a river that runs through northern Italy. Smooth sliding Mincius, crowned with vocal reeds, that strain I heard was of a higher mood. So the speech of Phoebus is what is being referred to here. And Milton says, or the speaker of the poem says, the speech of Phoebus was of a higher mood. Now, might be something out of the context as far as a pastoral poem is concerned, or it might be that the poet is referring to the divinity, the almighty gods. It was a speech of the gods. It was something, of a higher mood. But now my ode proceeds. So he's going to continue his song or poem. He's going to continue this particular pastoral elegy. But now my ode proceeds and listens to the herald of the sea. So, and then he listens to Triton. Triton is who is being described here as the herald of the sea. And he, what does he do? He asks he comes in favor or to, in plea of Neptune. And Neptune is the god of the sea. And what does Triton do? He comes to defend Neptune, who is the sea of the god, and he wants to save Neptune from the charge of or from the guilty feeling of Lycidas' death, and listens to the herald of the sea that came in Neptune's plea. He asked the waves, it's Triton who asks the waves. He asked the waves and asked the felon winds. Felon means savage winds. What hard mishap hath doomed this gentle swain? Gentle swain here means gentleman. So, what hard mishap? What is that mishap that caused, or what is that event that caused the death of this gentle man? And that is the question that Triton asked the waves as well as the felon or savage winds, and questioned every gust of rugged winds. So, um, yeah, and questioned every gust of rugged wings. Now, wings is an example for synecdoche. Synecdoche is a poetical device in which a part of something is used to refer to the whole. Now, here, wings refer to birds. So, a part of the bird is being used to describe or address the bird, and that is the technique called synecdoche. And questioned every gust of rugged wings that blows from off each beaked promontory, they knew not of his story. And sage Hippocrates their answer brings, that not a blast was from his dungeon strayed. So Hippocrates is the god of the winds, and he tells Triton. Triton he is the one who questions the waves, the winds, the birds, as well as Hippocrates. And Hippocrates, being the god of winds, he tells Triton that not a blast from his dungeon strayed, which means that all of his winds, he is the god of winds and he is the custodian of winds, and he says that all of his winds were at home and the air was calm. So none of his winds, it went astray. All were at home, and that is the kind of reason that Hippocrates gives to Triton. What they are trying to say is that they did not have any sort of involvement in the death of Lycidas. The air was calm, and on the level brine means salt water or sea water, and on the level brine, sleek Penelope is a sea nymph, Penelope with all her sisters played. It was the fatal and perfidious bark, built in the eclipse and rigged with curses dark, that sung so low that sacred head of thine. So, they say that it was not us who, led Lycidas to his destruction. It was that fatal and perfidious bark. Perfidious bark means a ship used for sailing, and perfidious means something which betrays you. So it was that ship that betrayed him. The ship which was not trustworthy was what sank Lycidas, or was what caused the death of Lycidas. And it was not trustworthy. The people who were being questioned by Triton, they say that it was not trustworthy as it was built during the time of eclipse, and therefore it was rigged with dark curses. It was filled with dark curses, and it is this perfidious bark, or this trustworthy non trustworthy bark or ship, that caused the death of Lycidas. Next, Camus, reverend sire, went footing slow, His mantle hairy and his bonnet sedge. So here we have a reference to Camus, which must be River Cam, which runs near the Cambridge University. And as you know, Cambridge University is the university where both Milton and Lycidas, Edward King, studied. So we have a reference to River Cam here, and Milton personifies River Cam here, and describes it as a sire. Sire means a person of some importance who walked slowly. Went footing slow means who walked slowly, and his mantle hairy and his bonnet such, which means who wore a mantle. Mantle means a coat. Mantle hairy means a fur coat, a coat made of furs. So he wore a mantle which was hairy, a furry coat possibly, and he was also wearing a bonnet sedge. He was also wearing a hat with some sort of a sedge. Sedge is a plant, so some sort of a flower or plant kept on the hat. So next came his reverend sire, went footing slow, his mantle hairy and his bonnet sedge. So this is also an example for personification, which is you treat abstract objects or non-living objects as human beings. Here it's the river Cam that is being personified. His mantle hairy and his bonnet sedge, inwrought with figures dim. Inwrought means decorated, inwrought with figures dim, and on the edge like to that sanguine flower, inscribed with woe. So the bonnet sedge, which is the plant, is compared to a sanguine flower. Sanguine flower is the water hyacinth. In Greek mythology, there was a Spartan who was named as Hyacinthus, and he was accidentally killed by Apollo, who is the god of sun, music, and poetry. And it is believed that hyacinth flowers marked with the Greek word al, which translated to alas. Alas is an unfortunate expression, a sad expression, and these hyacinth flowers they sprung up from his blood, and that is why Milton here refers to as the sanguine flower inscribed with woe. The word alas, the word al in Greek. Ah, who hath reft, quoth he, my dearest pledge? Last came and last did go, the pilot of the Galilean lake. Two massy keys he bore of metal twain, the golden orbs, the iron shuts amain. So, um, the river, it comes and asks this question, who hath reft? Who hath reft means who has been taken. Is it my dearest pledge? And the river's dearest pledge here refers to Lycidas. So Camus, which is river Cam, he is personified here, or the river is being personified here. The person Camus, he comes and asks, "Who hath reft? Who has been taken? Who has died? Is it my famous? Is it my dearest pledge? Is it my Lycidas?" And next, and who comes? It's the pilot of the Galilean lake, and the pilot of the Galilean lake is none other than Saint Peter. And Saint Peter appears with two keys, two massy keys, and it was made up of two different metals. A golden one, it was used to open the gate, and the iron one was used to close the gate. So last came and last did go, the pilot of the Galilean lake. Two massy keys he bore of metals twain. The golden ops means opens, the iron shuts amain, the iron one shuts. He took his mitred locks and stern bespake. Mitred means, the hairs which are, joined together using a cap. He wears a cap. That is what Milton means here. And stern bespake. Bespake means bespoke, spoke. Stern means in a stern manner. So he spoke in a stern manner. How well could I have spared for thee, young swain, enough of such as for their bellies' sake creep and intrude and climb into the fort. So St. Peter asks, how I could have saved you, young shepherd. Enough of these, those who creep and intrude into the fold for their belly's sake. That is what he means by the verses. Enough. Enough means enough. Enough of such as for their belly's sake creep and intrude and climb into the fold. So enough of such people who you come into the fold, who join the fold for their belly's sake. Belly's sake here refers to their materialistic prospects. Of other care they little reckoning make, than how to scramble at the shearer's feast and shove away the worthy bidden guest. So this is where this elegy takes the shape of a scathing criticism on the church as well as the clergy. St. Peter says that these materialistic clergy, they don't care about others. Of other care they little reckoning make, and all they think about is to scramble or struggle for food at a shearer's feast. Shearer here refers to a shepherd. So all they care about is to struggle for food. They want more and more. Now, it's their materialistic, desires that is being reflected here. And what they care about is to struggle for food or their materialistic desires, and they even force out worthy bidden guest or invited people. That is how he that's how Milton puts it. They even shove away the worthy bidden guest. Bidden guest means invited guest. So to get food, to get more materialistic things, they even shove away, they even chase out or force out people who are invited or who were invited. Blind mouths that scarce themselves know how to hold a sheep hook, or have learned aught else the least that to the faithful herdman's art belongs. So Milton calls these corrupt clergy as blind mouths. Now, people who are blinded by their materialistic cravings, and they are people who hardly know how to hold a sheep hook. That is what Milton says. And as I said earlier, this is the area where the poem takes on the form of a criticism against the church, the Roman church, the clergy of the Roman church. So he calls them blind mouths, and he says that they don't even know how to hold a sheep hook, and they do anything, and they don't know how to do anything that can actually be done by a herdman or a shepherd. So they have no idea of how to be a shepherd. They don't even know how to hold a sheep hook, but they are here. And why are they here? They are here, these blind mouths, they are here to struggle for food. They want to gain something. They want to gain materialistic things. That is why they are here. What recks it them? What need they? They are sped. So they think that they don't need anything as they are sped. Sped means satisfied. So they think that they are satisfied with the things that they have. But how do they behave? They behave in a manner which is quite unbecoming of a shepherd. And the shepherd that he refers to here is the clergy. And when they list their lean and flashy songs, grate on their scrannel pipes of wretched straw. So these clergymen, they sing weak, or these shepherd whom Milton talks about in these verses, they sing weak, bad and flashy songs, and they grate on their thin pipes. So their song isn't of any worth. They sing very badly, and also they are not good at their flutes, their pipes, which they use to produce some music to accompany the song that they sing. The hungry sheep look up and are not fed, but swelling with wind and the wang miss their draw, wrought inwardly and foul contagion spread. So Milton continues to speak through Saint Peter, and he says that the sheep look up to their shepherds. And the hungry sheep, they look up to their shepherds. But what is the response that they get? No, they are not fed. The hungry sheep, they look to their masters, but they are not fed. But they are swollen with wind and mist. They are empty at heart and therefore they rot or decay inwardly, and this rotten state is spreading among them. And Milton continues to speak through the mouth of St. Peter. Milton says, besides what the grim wolf with privy paw daily devours apace and nothing said. Besides what the grim wolf means a wolf which inspires horror in us, which is very frightening, the sight which is very much frightening. Grim wolf with privy paw means, having hidden agendas. Privy means something which is hidden, and here Milton means people who have hidden agendas. Wolves, cunning people who have hidden agendas. Besides what the grim wolf with privy paw daily devours apace. Apace means with speed and nothing said. So the sheep are attacked by the wolves every day, and nothing is being done about that or being said about that. And these wolves, it could be the church which was there back then, which Milton actually hated. Milton was a Protestant, he was a Puritan as well, and he hated the Roman Catholic Church, and it is his, hatred for that this particular category or religion or the church as such, which is being presented here. So besides what the grim wolf with privy paw daily devours apace and nothing said, but that two-handed engine at the door stands ready to smite once and smite no more. So Milton talks about a two-handed engine, which could be the shears or the scissors which are used by the shepherds to shear the sheep. No, there have been many interpretations to this phrase, but let's try to stick on to this particular interpretation. Shears as scissors, or the two-handed engine as shears or the scissors which the shepherd use. But that two-handed engine at the door stands. So this particular machine has been fixed at the door, or it is there at the door, and it is there standing ready to smite once and smite no more. So this engine is ready to smite or to hit, and once it smites or hits, there will be no more. Return, Alpheus, the dread voice is past that shrunk thy streams. So Milton requests Alpheus. Alpheus is the god of river in Greek mythology, and Milton requests Alpheus to return or to come back as St. Peter has ended his speech. And it is St. Peter's speech that is being referred to by the expression the dread voice. Dread means something which causes fear. So Milton asks Alpheus to return and also return Sicilian muse. The Sicilian muse refers to the muse that inspired Theocritus, who is actually the father of pastoral poetry, and it's believed that he was from Sicily, which is an island in southern Italy, and which was also once colonized by the Greeks. So he asked both Alpheus and the Sicilian muse to return. Return, Sicilian muse, and call the whales and bid them hither cast their bells and flowerets of a thousand hues. So Milton says, please come back, please return, both Alpheus and Sicilian muse, and he asked the Sicilian muse as well as Alpheus to tell or call the whales. Whales means winds, and tell them to send flowers of a thousand hues or colors. Ye valleys low, where the mild whispers use of shades and wanton winds and gushing brooks. So this is another example for the technique called apostrophe, and the poet in these verses addresses the valleys, with beautiful shades and wanton winds. Wanton means carefree, carefree winds, and gushing brooks. Gushing brooks means streams that flow profusely or in abundance, in great plenty, in plentiful. So Milton addresses these valleys, and that is why this becomes, or this that is why I said that the technique of apostrophe has been employed here as well. A valley is low where the mild whispers use of shades and wanton winds and gushing brooks, on whose fresh lap the swart star sparely looks. A fresh lap refers to the refreshing space between these valleys, and the sword star refers to Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. The previous session we saw Milton referring to the brightest planet, which is Venus, and in this particular stanza we have Milton referring to Sirius, which is the brightest star in the sky. And on the whole, this particular verse line means that this place is so fresh or bright or fertile that even the brightest star couldn't lit it up. On whose fresh lap the sword star sparely looks, throw hither all your quaint enamelled eyes. Quaint enamelled eyes here means eyes with eyes which are strangely colored, or it can even refer to flowers which are multicolored. So throw hither all your quaint enamelled eyes, that on the green turf suck the honeyed showers, and purple all the ground with vernal flowers. So these flowers which are there in the valley, they suck the honeyed showers or sweet rainwater from the green turf. Turf means ground, and they fill the ground with purple vernal flowers. Vernal flowers here refers to the spring flowers, the flowers that you see in the spring season. Bring the wreath primrose that forsaken dies, the tufted crowtow and pale jessamine, the white pink and the pansy freaked with jet, the glowing violet, the musk rose, and the well-attired woodbine, with cowslips worn that hang the pensive head, and every flower that sad embroidery wears. So the poet in this particular stanza, it's addressing the valleys, I said earlier. So the poet addresses these valleys, and he tells them to bring the wraith primrose. Wraith primrose or primrose, which blossoms very early, and it dies if it's not taken care of. Once you forsake it, it dies. So please bring me the wraith primrose, and also the tufted crowtow. The reference is to wild hyacinth. The tufted crowtow here refers to the wild hyacinth. And also bring me jessamine. Jessamine is jasmine, and pink and pansy flowers, which are flowers which are pink in color, and also the pansy plant, the flowers of the pansy plant. And all these flowers are freaked with jet, which means that all these flowers are streaked with black color, as they are probably mourning the death of Lycidas. And he also asked the valleys to bring the gloomy violet colored flowers, the musk rose, the good looking woodbine, the wan cowslips or the pale cowslips that seem to droop or hang their heads in serious thoughts, and all other flowers that seems to look sad. So he wants all flowers which in appearance look very sad, so that he can use them in this particular context. Bid Amaranthus all his beauty shed, and daffodillies fill their cups with tears, to strew the laureate hears where Lycidas lies. So it is now we understand why he is asking for all these flowers. Milton asked the valleys to also bring amaranthus. I mean, to he tells the valleys to request the amaranthus to shed its beauty, and the daffodils to shed tears. And as I said earlier, it is now we understand why the poet or Milton wants all these flowers. Now he wants to strew or cover the laureate hears. Laureate here refers to the coffin in which Lycidas lies. So he says, bid Amaranthus all his beauty shed, and daffodillies fill their cups with tears, to strew the laureate hears where Lycidas lies. Laureate means a person of great importance or a person of great honor. So it is in this particular hears, it is in this particular coffin that Lycidas lies. So bring me all the flowers that you can bring from your valleys. Ask the amaranthus to shed its beauty. Tell the daffodils or daffodils to shed some tears, because it is here where Lycidas lie. For so to interpose a little ease, let our frail thoughts dally with foul surmise. So the speaker wants to ease himself or console himself by imagining Lycidas' coffin is being decorated with all kinds of flowers. We know that Lycidas or Edward King has died and he perished away in the ocean. So his body is not actually with Milton. They couldn't see him, and Milton want to soothe himself, want to console himself by imagining that Lycidas' coffin is placed there and he's decorating the coffin with all sorts of flower which are available. I me, whilst thee the shores and sounding seas wash far away, wherever thy bones are hurled, whether beyond the stormy Hebrides, where thou perhaps under the whelming tide visitest the bottom of the monstrous world, or whether thou, to our moist vows denied, sleepest by the fable of Belarus old, where the great vision of the guarded mount looks toward Namencos and Biona's hold, look homeward, angel, now, and melt with ruth, and oh ye dolphins, waft the hapless youth. So this is how these verses can be paraphrased. It might seem very difficult, very complex, but it's easy once you go through the paraphrase. I'll just read the paraphrase for you. While the shores and seas wash Lycidas' body far away, wherever his bones are hurled or thrown away, whether it be beyond Hebrides. Hebrides are a group of islands off the western coast of Scotland. So where you might be under the whelming tide, which means all engulfing tide, visiting the monstrous world, or perhaps despite our moist vows or tearful prayers, you are sleeping by the fable of Belarus. Fable of Belarus is or Belarus is a character that Milton invented, to refer to the end of land, the end of all lands. So, by the fable of Belarus or the end of land, from where one can see Namencos and Bayona, and these are two places in Spain, I want you, angel, to look homeward and feel sad. So, wherever your bones are hurled away, or wherever the body of Lycidas is being taken away by the seas, where you might be under the overwhelming tide, and you might be visiting the monstrous world underneath, and from where you can see Namencos and Bayonas, the two cities, the port cities in Spain, and I want you, angel, to look homeward and feel sad. So he requests the angel to look homeward. Probably it's Lycidas that is being addressed here, and he asks Lycidas to look homeward and feel sad. Or perhaps it's an angel itself that he addresses here, and he wants the angel to look homeward and sad because Lycidas isn't at home. Lycidas has perished. And oh ye dolphins, waft the hapless youth, and you dolphins waft or carry along the hapless youth, or the youth deserving pity, safely home. So he wants the dolphins to carry the dead body of Lycidas safely back to the shore. Weep no more, woeful shepherds, weep no more, for Lycidas your sorrow is not dead, sunk though he be beneath the watery floor. Um, so sings the day star in the ocean bed, and yet anon repairs his drooping head, and tricks his beams, and with new spangled ore flames in the forehead of the morning sky. So he tells his fellow shepherds, weep no more, for Lycidas is not dead. No, he might have drowned in the river, but he is not dead. It's not that he is alive, but he is alive in our hearts. And Milton gives us a simile to substantiate his statement which he made just now. His statement that Lycidas is not dead. Now why does he say that? Why does Milton say that he is not dead? He says that just like the day star here refers to the sun. So just like the day star or sun, which appears to sink into the ocean in the west, and then again after some time reappears, in a newly spangled ore, which means sparkling, spangling gold. Lycidas too will rise. Just like sun sets in the west and again rises in the east, Lycidas will rise again. And we understand that the sun is being personified here. So sinks the day star in the ocean bed, and yet anon. Anon means anonymous person, or in the way Milton intended it, very soon. And yet anon repairs his drooping head and tricks his beams with newly spangled ore, flames in the forehead of the morning sky. So Lycidas sung low but mounted high through the dear might of him that walked the waves. So Lycidas, just like the sun, has also risen again, and this happened through the clear might, or dear might or power of him that walked the waves. The reference is to Jesus Christ, the one who walked on top of the sea or the waves, where other groves and other streams along with nectar pure his oozy locks he laves, and hears the unexpressive nuptial song in the blessed kingdoms meek of joy and love. So Lycidas at present now he spends his time among different groves. Groves means group of trees and streams, and he laves or washes his oozy locks. Oozy locks refers to slimy hair, probably because he died after drowning in the sea, and he washes his slimy hair with pure nectar. And he also hears unexpressive nuptial song. Nuptial songs are wedding songs or songs of happiness, and all these happen in the blessed kingdom of joy and love, which is paradise or heaven. So Milton establishes that he is in heaven now. There entertain him all the saints above in solemn troops and sweet societies that sing, and singing in their glory move and wipe the tears forever from his eyes. So Lycidas is in heaven now, and there in heaven the saints entertain him in groups, and they sing to wipe the tears away from him forever. Now Lycidas, the shepherds weep no more. Now, Lycidas, the shepherds weep no more. Henceforth thou art the genius of the shore, in thy large recompense, and shalt be good to all that wander in that perilous flood. So it is Lycidas that Milton addresses in these verses. Milton addresses Lycidas in these lines, and again it's an example for an apostrophe. And he says that the shepherds do not weep anymore, and Lycidas has become the genius of the shore. And genius here does not mean a smart person, an intelligent person, but it could mean a spirit or a deity who takes care of all the sailors who sail the perilous flood, who sail the seas. And it is the recompense or reward that Lycidas has received for dying. He has now become a deity or a god or a spirit that protects all sailors, and that is a reward that he has got for dying, for his death. Thus sang the uncouth swain to the oaks and rills, while the still morn went out with sandals grey. He touched the tender stops of various quills, with eager thought warbling his Doric lay. So, in the concluding stanza, Milton says that the entire poem was actually a song sung by an uncouth swain. Uncouth swain here might refer to a man lacking refinement or an unknown person. So, this entire song, thus sang the uncouth swain. This is where we understand that this was a song, or this was something that is being, sung by an uncouth swain or an unknown person, and he sang it to the oak trees and rills or streams. While the still moon went out with sandals grey, or while it was still daytime, he touched the tender stops of various quills, which means that he used a quill or a pen made from feather, or it can even mean a hand pipe to sing his Doric lay. Doriclea here refers to the pastoral song. Doric refers to the dialect which was used by ancient Greeks to compose pastoral poems. And now the sun had stretched out all the hills, and now was dropped into the western bay. At last he rose and twitched his mantle blue. Tomorrow to fresh woods and pastures new. So, and now the sun sets, and the uncouth swain who has been singing this song about Lycidas and his death, he rises and twitched or touched his mantle. Mantle means the coat which he was wearing, and he went ahead to fresh woods and pastures new. He went ahead to meet to confront new adventures. That is where this particular poem comes to an end. So the poem, as I said earlier, is a beautiful token of friendship that Milton shared, or it is a token that expresses the kind of friendship or the bond that he shared with Edward King, who is being characterized as Lycidas in this poem. The pastoral quality of the poem is something which is remarkable and must be very well appreciated. And it is what this pastoral mode is what separates this particular elegy from all other elegies written so far. And Milton himself has said that pastoral elegy is one of the natural modes of literary expression. And I believe he has effectively used this mode to express his thoughts on the untimely death of his friend and also to honor his friend. So that is where we will end this discussion. It's a lengthy poem, and there are numerous allusions that Milton used to convey the hardship that he faced at the loss of his beloved friend. A proper understanding of all these allusions and the mythological figures or the mythological stories that Milton has employed in this poetry will definitely help you to understand this poem better. So, thank you so much for being with me. I'll see you in another video lesson. Thank you so much.